time for the 49ers Rush Podcast. And here's your host, John Chapman.
What is going on, faithful? It is Thursday, which means John Chapman and Ant show up. We do the opposite of Hassan Riddick. Is basically that's what this show is. Ant, how are you, my brother?
I'm doing great, and you're right, Hassan Reddick. Please stay away. I have no problems with you. You know you deserve your money, so make sure you hold out and get every single dime you could possibly get. But yeah, it's great. Thursdays are definitely one of my favorite days of the week because we get to have this conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Chad has to say because they always have some interesting things to bring up, and then of course, the advantages and disadvantages. We're talking about X's and O's and Jimmy's and Joe's finally, and not contract situations, which I love.
Yeah, imagine the 49ers having a player hold out. We can't relate as 49ers fans because we sign everybody with no drama ever attached to it. I can think of no other reasons. I mean, just everybody just signs up and plays. It's what it is. But I want to say thank you to all the hashtag CCs, all the Cutback crew. I got to say, Ant, we did a couple shows together a couple Thursdays ago. My inbox is just peppered with, I love the John and Ant on Thursdays. I love the John and Ant on Thursdays. So we still don't have a cool name. I'm kind of disappointed in the community. Like we got the John and Wayne show. You got your red and black show with Mark, who I freaking love that show. Come on, guys. We need a cool name for Rush, Cutback, John, Ant, John. I don't know. Y'all got to figure this out because I am not creative. But what I do know is I know some football, not near to the level of Ant, and we're going to be covering a lot of this. And today's going to be fun because I'm always kind of positive guy. Ant's positive too. I put on my negative socks today. So what's going to happen is we're going to bounce back and forth. I got a couple questions I want to get into first, but we're going to bounce back and forth. Ant's going to give a 49ers advantage for this week 1 game, and then I'm going to give a Jets advantage. I'm putting on the opposite, whatever you want to call that. So that's what we got going on today. Going to be fun. We're going to bounce back and forth. Going to be good. What's up, Rick? Hey, appreciate you, man. I like this. This is going to be a good show. So here we go. First question that I got for you, and I waited 3 days to bring this up on the show because I really wanted to get your take on it. Vams on Twitter asked me this. How has Aaron Banks looked during training camp / preseason when you've watched him? Does it look like he's recovered from the injury completely? Does he look like the old Aaron Banks? Somewhere in between? What's kind of your take on big number 65 who's going to be starting left guard for us week 1?
I think he's looked somewhere in between. It doesn't look like the Aaron Banks we saw early in last year before he got hurt. And he hasn't quite regained the form. And how much of that is Trent Williams not being there next to him? I'm sure that helps a ton. And also just the fact that you haven't been able to get a consistent run game going early on. But yeah, Aaron Banks doesn't look as good as he did last year. And I think that is a concern for the 49ers because, you know what, he's going to be tested right away with Quinnen Williams. And I think that's something that Aaron Banks is going to have to rise to the occasion to do. It's not a technique flaw. It's not like something all of a sudden he's doing technique-wise. It is just he's laterally a little bit slower than what we were hoping we were going to get. And this is something that's been a bugaboo for Aaron Banks since he came out of the draft. Originally, Maurice Hurst was making this guy look so bad in training camp, we thought we had a bust. So he worked on it. He got his body where it should be. He improved his lateral quickness, and that helped him a lot. And so that's going to be one of the question marks. Can he return to form? I don't think we've seen the best Aaron Banks like we saw last year. But I'm hopeful that maybe coming back from the pinky and having Trent Williams next to him, he can kind of regain that form. I think the 49ers need him to regain that form for them to be as successful as they want to be this year.
Yeah, I like that. Here's my notes, verbatim, quote, in between, but doesn't seem to be in pain out there. That was my, so again, you said in between, those were the first words that I was like, dang it. We're in agreement. I was hoping you were going to be like, oh, man, he's 100% back. He's back to where he is and all that stuff, but not quite. So it's funny because you talked about the roller coaster. First year, never active, just literally just sat back and watched. He was doing the John Chapman. Second year was good. Then it comes out his third year. First 3 weeks, I thought Pro Bowl caliber player. It was just like, holy freaking cow. If this is what we're going to get, then the turf toe, then re-injured the turf toe. I would argue probably everybody wants to talk Spencer Burford. I would argue the worst lineman we had in the Super Bowl was Aaron Banks. It was bad, consistently bad through all 4 quarters. But I'm a Banks fan. I think he's awesome. It's just which side of the coin are we getting? The injury seems to be gone. I don't know. He doesn't look in pain. I need him to get going. And so real quick, I love this. Freddie McDre says, "What's up, Ant Mark? I am not as handsome as Mark. We do fit a lot of the same profiles. He's got a little bit of red cheeks. I got super red cheeks. My name is John Chapman. Nice to meet you. But that's okay. I'll take it as a compliment. I like Mark a lot. We got the cut through. We've got the Rush Ant podcast show. I like it. We're still workshopping. Let's keep workshopping. Bobo, my man, appreciate the super chat. He says, who can do more push-ups between the two of you? You never go against an O-line coach, Bobo. That is just a competition I don't even enter in. I ain't playing with that one. I'm going to vote Bobo on that one, which once you get into football season, you know this, Ant. Football coaches, this is one of the negatives. Those workouts take a little bit of a hit. You're not getting to the gym near as much. You're trying to. You're eating a little less healthy, which I don't like. But yeah, football season is always one of those. Look at this one. John Ant. There we go. Rush back show. That I had a brain aneurysm reading that one, but I like the creativity. 0. All right, here we go. Let's start off. I'm going to turn it over to you, Ant. Let's do a 49ers advantage, break that down. Then I'll slingshot back with the Jets advantage, try to cover this from both sides.
I think that the first advantage for the 49ers has got to be in the run game. You look at the Jets last year, they really struggled to stop the run. They gave up 124 yards per game on the ground, including 4.1 yards per carry. And they tried to improve the defensive line and be able to stop the run, but they added Javon Kinlaw, and Kinlaw has not been every single day. He rushed the passer. That was good, but he did not stop the run. And then Solomon Thomas isn't good at stopping the run on the inside either. And that's their first rotational piece. So I have concerns about them stopping the run. I think the 49ers add Dominic Pooney. Aaron Banks is at least pretty good against, when blocking in the run game. I think the 49ers are going to be able to run the ball pretty consistently, even though they have very good linebackers with the Jets. I mean, very good linebackers. They're just not good at stopping the run. And I think that's one of the concerns for the Jets and one of the advantages that the 49ers definitely possess.
Yeah, last year they were 25th rush yards allowed. And that's what their defense was, a top 5 defense by almost every metric. But that was the one area. And, the one thing I will say, Hassan Riddick was a definitely minus run defender. So now you're going to get a lot more Jermaine Johnson. Now, I don't think Will McDonald is a plus run defender. Clemens is. I think he kind of fits in there. But yeah, I think that's going to be an issue. And if the 49ers could establish the run, last year the Jets allowed 4.1 yards per carry. If the 49ers are above 4, my favorite metric that if I could just say this happens, 30 plus rush attempts for the 49ers, amazing things happen. Is there a number that you have, Ant, where you're like, gosh, we got to hit this number, rush attempts, that like you kind of highlight? 30 is always my number. I don't know where you go with that one.
Yeah, I'm in the same place. If you get around 30, that means you're running the ball successfully, and it's going to, open up other doors for you. And I think 30 is a nice number. And I think if you get 40, you're winning the football game. So that's how close it is. 30, you're in control. 40, you're winning the game. It's that close. So the 49ers definitely need to establish the run, and I think they can. I don't see it for the Jets. I'm trying to see it, but I can't see them being able to consistently stop Christian McCaffrey in the run game and Jordan Mason in the run game.
Yeah, I want to see Mason get some touches as well in there. Steph 49K. I absolutely love it. One of my favorite people I have ever had the pleasure of interacting with. Thank you so much for the super chat. I had jumped into her show earlier today. Absolutely crushed it. If you haven't checked out Steph 49 Carats podcast, show, YouTube, wherever. I mean, shoot, the 49ers are working with her. They did the schedule release. She was all over there. Thank you so much. She says, love you, buddy. Have a good show. My very first super chat. I am honored and very appreciative. Thank you so much. You are the absolute best. And hopefully we can hang out a couple times this year. I feel like we always kind of get at least say hi once or twice a season. So wonderful. Thank you, Steph. Your generosity, absolutely just incredible. Thank you so much. You're the best. Dancing, glad to have you back. She says, all the 49ers cast-offs on the Jets D-line. Advantage or disadvantage with us? Ooh. There's a lot of them. Obviously you've got Kinlaw, you got Solomon Thomas, and then there's a lot of other ones too. They got Isaiah Oliver, they got DJ Reed, plus half of our coaching staff, a lot of our, there's just, it's everywhere. So let's phrase it this way. Is there an advantage that the Jets, because we don't have any Jets guys on our team, to my knowledge. I don't think we have any of them. Is there an advantage that they have, the fact that so many of their guys have been in our building?
No, it wasn't an advantage for Mike McDaniel. It hasn't been an advantage for Sean McVay, knowing Kyle Shanahan so well, or Matt LaFleur. When they play Kyle Shanahan, they struggle. He's got that Bill Belichick effect. Belichick used to handle all of his assistants, and Kyle Shanahan handles all of his, because even though they've been in the building, they don't know all the secrets to the sauce. He keeps things, close to the vest, and I think Kyle Shanahan usually handles business. So, yeah, they have a lot of guys. They understand some principles of what the 49ers do, and you can look at that as a strength, or you can look at that as a weakness, because if you think something's coming, Kyle might show you something's coming, and it's actually something else, and then you're caught. So I think that they're going to have to be smart. They're going to have to be cautious. Of course, it always helps having a little bit of understanding, but Shanahan normally just takes advantage of his assistants in a big way, and he doesn't usually lose.
Yeah, it's the copy of the original is never as pristine. It's what it, and I don't know if you guys listened to the play caller series. I think it was like 2 years ago. Jordan Rodriguez, Athletic. I listened to it a couple times through, and it was McVay, Shanahan, Kevin O'Connell, McDaniel, all those guys, right? And it's funny because Jordan Rodriguez is she literally works and covers the Rams and slants everything to the Rams. Like, she's amazing. She does great work, but diehard McVay believer. And she was trying to push that narrative on the show, I felt like. And the whole time I'm like, everybody's talking about Shanahan. Hey, nobody talking about McVay. He's the leader. You know what I mean? Like, he is the guy that all these people learn their stuff from. And that's just what it is. So I'm not going to give them an advantage on that. And I don't think it's a disadvantage for them either. It's just Shanahan, whenever he plays against his tree, he's always just got a trick up his sleeve every single time. What's up, my man Phil? Appreciate you. He says, hi, John and Ant. He's a big fan of you, man. He comes and hangs out with us at ours. It feels great, man. He is just great. If Phil was the absolute Nick Sikel truther, and so I always got to give him credit there. Steph says she'll be out there Monday. Would be great to see you. We're going to link up. I'm going to reach out. That's happening 100%. Now, let's talk about Jets advantages. My first one, Quinnen Williams, I think, is probably their best defender, or at least in the conversation. Him, Sauce, you talk about their linebackers, like, they got some talent. But Quinnen Williams, back-to-back Pro Bowls, a really, really good player. I'm most worried not about the rookie. That's what's crazy. I'm not worried about Dominic Pooney versus him. I'm worried about Jake Brendel. The Jets don't blitz. In fact, they had about a 15% blitz rate last year, but they stunt. And whenever they line him up in that 3 technique and he crosses the face of the guard and goes right at the center, that's probably my biggest concern, is Quinnen Williams stunting over Jake Brendel. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Jake Brendel's going to be a concern. He can't anchor when it comes to pass protection. That's not his strength. So that means you have to give him help. Somebody's going to have to come through and give him help, whether that's Banks or Pooney. We know Pooney and Banks are both good at anchoring. So you're probably going to see some help for Jake Brendel, especially if Quinnen Williams is lined up over the top of him. They're probably going to have some stunts. The good thing about Jake Brendel when it comes to stunts, he moves laterally very quickly, so he can probably get in the way of most of those. I think the 49ers are going to have to take some of the pressure off Jake Brendel and Colt McKivitz by making sure that they run the ball effectively. It kind of goes back to the 49ers' advantage, and also taking advantage of the aggressive style of the defensive line, right? They're prototypical 49ers style defensive line, get across the formation, wreak havoc. Well, that also leaves them susceptible to traps and wham blocks, and those types of things can make an aggressive defensive line a little less aggressive, or at least take them out of position and have some big plays in the run game. So the run game is going to be the effective neutralizer of Quinnen Williams. If they can get that going, that will slow him down. No third and longs. Third and long is terrible for Jake Brendel, and that would be a distinct advantage for the Jets. So I think that's where it starts. Run game, making sure that Jake Brendel doesn't face third and long. 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, fantastic. Anything other than that, that's not good. Quinnen Williams is going to eat him up, and that's not great. So they're going to have to figure some things out. But this is what Chris Forster talks about, giving help where help is needed. And guess what? Having number 71 at left tackle just made it a whole lot easier to give help to those other guys.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, look at Aaron. I love Robert Saleh. I think that he is also by far one of my favorite people in the NFL. Now, Aaron, who's listened to the show for a long time, appreciate you, Aaron. This was always my critique. He says, too bad Saleh isn't calling plays because you could abuse him for an entire half before he makes an adjustment. He never believed in first half adjustments. When we first got D'Amico, I was like, ooh, that's a second quarter adjustment? We changed something on defense? What is happening? Do you remember those days where it was just like, we're not going to do a gap exchange one time on zone read ever?
Yeah, he would either come out with a really crazy good game plan that would work for the first 3 drives and completely shut down. Remember the Seahawks, he would shut them down for the first 3 drives, and then after that, it was trouble. Or it would go the other way, and he would just not be able to adjust until the second half. Wilkes kind of fell into that a little bit last year at times, but yeah, Robert Saleh was king of that.
I love it. Look at this. I like this question from Phil. Let's see. I'll let you take Bosa. I'll let you take Warner. I'll take Bosa. I want to give you the hard one. What will Fred Warner or Nick Bosa have to do to win Defensive Player of the Year?
I think Fred Warner's got to have even a better season than last year, and that's tough to say because last year he was absolutely brilliant. He was getting the ball in turnovers. He was great stopping the run. I mean, the guy was literally flying over the top of people like a superhero and knocking people down. He was something different. So I think it would take the 49ers defense being one of the top defenses, probably the number 1 defense, because they do rank your players depending on how overall team success is. I think that would be part of it. And then Fred's going to have, over 160 tackles. He's going to have 4 or 5 turnovers, a couple of sacks. I think that's what it would take. And even then, it's usually somebody that rushes the passer that gets more attention. So I think it'll be a little bit tough for Fred, but he's going to have a brilliant year. And they need that anyways. They don't have Dre Greenlaw for half the year.
Yeah, and I think showing up at primetime games is huge. And the fact that the 49ers have so many primetime games and the fact that they start, like, that's huge. You have to have notoriety to win these MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, defense. Like, you have to have a foundation built. Fred's got that. Bosa has that. But I think the last year for Warner was kind of a catalyst to where he's involved in the conversation. It seems like it's almost turning into the MVP where, like, it always goes to a quarterback, and Defensive Player of the Year seems to almost always go to a pass rusher. But if Warner can get some of those huge games in prime time, that's got to be key. You've got to talk about pick sixes, interceptions, and sacks, which we don't blitz him near as much as a lot of the other backs in the NFL. Maybe that changes this year, but you got to get sacks. You got to get interceptions. Those are the 2 most prime characteristics or traits to win Defensive Player of the Year. Now, for Bosa, we've already seen it. The year that he won Defensive Player of the Year, 18.5 sacks, led the NFL. He had 19 tackle for losses. So that's kind of your threshold. But I think theoretically you can do it with kind of 16.5 sacks and 20 tackle for losses, as long as they're in big moments and you do it in primetime games and they're at pivotal points in those primetime. What's the primetime players Show up at primetime games and primetime moments, right? That's what you got to do. And the good news, the opportunity is set for them. So they get to play on Monday night to start it against Aaron Rodgers. Go out, set the tone, be the leader in the clubhouse, keep going, and that's where we're at. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate the super sticker. You are awesome. I like the Chapman crew. That's what's up. Appreciate you guys. Dave, it's sad that a rookie Pooney will make the veterans on either side of him look better. Yeah, I think it's awesome. But, yeah, I see the flip side of the coin. The fact that you have a rookie that's bailing out the center who started for several years and the right tackle for several years, but at least you got him.
Right. And it's the same at other positions, right? I mean, when you bring in young players and they're able to help your team right away, they elevate everyone. And so getting a guy like Dominic Pooney that can make your offensive line better and help the people around him is exactly what you need. You have one on the left side, a veteran in Trent Williams who makes everyone better. Why not have a right guard that can make everyone's job a little bit easier? That's how you know you hit. That's how you know you get these guys that are going to be big-time players for you for a long time. So it doesn't always happen that a rookie's able to step in, but when they are, that means it feels like you've improved at the position. And if you've improved on a team that was one of the best offenses last year, I think that's exactly what you're looking for every single season. So Pooney's going to make it a little bit easier, and that's great. I don't really care about Jake Brendel getting accolades or whatever for Dominic Pooney's play, because everyone who's in that building will know that it was Dominic Pooney that made things easier. And when the time comes, he'll be rewarded for that.
And O-line almost always sticks together. That's a unit that is, it's awesome. Now, look at Joe Rockstar. I love this. If you guys have not checked this out, he says, anybody getting that Madden sim done soon? Listen to this. On 49ers Cutback, which if you do not subscribe to that show, I don't know what the hell you're doing. It's some of the best 49ers coverage out there, period. Does a Madden simulation on Friday. He does his game preview on Saturday. Then he does the post-game show live reaction, which is incredible. I listen to it whenever I'm usually driving home from the game or wherever I'm at, on the road or whatever. So go check out 49ers Cutback. That's all you got to type in wherever you are. And man, Madden sim. Have you played a lot of Madden so far this year since it came out?
I haven't played a whole lot. I did get into it a little bit, checking it out. I had to get the new feel for it. And, it's just like with Madden, it's hit and miss. Some of the things you like, some of the things you don't. But yeah, I kind of have always been more of a fan of the early Maddens. Give me the 2004, 2005 Madden back on PS2. That's kind of my jam. But yeah, it's all right. I like the game a little bit.
Yeah, it's fun. I played it a couple times. I always go to the training mode. Those are always my favorite, where you like go through the running back drills and the passing drills, all that stuff. I'm a loser. What's up, Corey? Appreciate you, man. It's been a while. Glad that you are here. All right, here we go. Another question. How many times does Debo get the ball? If you had to guess the over-under on touches, I'm going to say 7.5. Would you take over or would you take under?
I think it's going to end up being. I'll go over. I think that his training camp, the way that he's went about his business, and I think some of the matchups. I think we're going to get a lot of Sauce Gardner, kind of mirroring Brandon Ayuk, which means you're going to get DJ Reed and Debo Samuel. And I like Debo kind of in some of the opportunities to use his strength, some screens and things like that, especially if you're going to get some bail coverage in their cover 3 and things like that. I think there could be some opportunities for Debo. I think they'll feed him early, and then we'll see how it goes. But I was going to say 7, so I just went ahead and went over. There could possibly be an 8th one.
I got you.
I got you. You got me perfectly. Yeah, exactly. Because I do think it's going to be around 7-8 touches for Debo, because they're going to want to get him active and get him acclimated, and I think that'll make it easier for everyone else if they can. It's going to be tough sledding though against this cornerback room for the Jets.
I like it. All right, let's get to another one, Ant. Give me a 49ers advantage. I'll come out with the Jets one right after that, and we'll bounce those around.
I like George Kittle in this game. I think George Kittle against the safeties, of the Jets, I think this is one that the 49ers can take advantage of. And I know we're going to see a lot of zone coverage in this matchup, usually do, but I just think George Kittle is going to have some matchup issues to present to the Jets. Not only can he help in the run game by blocking, and that's going to be a huge advantage, he can man up a guy like Will McDonald or some of those guys in the run game, making it a little bit easier for your lineman to get second level. But I think in the passing game, I don't see a guy that they can kind of lock George Kittle up with. I don't see a matchup that's not good for Kittle. And I think once the 49ers establish that run game and get into their play action, I think that's when George Kittle's really going to thrive. And so I'm looking forward to Kittle versus the Jets. And I think even the linebackers, you got to take, normally linebackers, it's a clear advantage for McCaffrey and for George Kittle. I still think it's an advantage for George Kittle in this one. And their safeties, I think if you're going to find a weakness on the defense, it's defensive tackles and its safeties. I think those are the biggest weaknesses. And Quinnen Williams aside, let's leave him out of. He's not a weakness, but everybody else. But I think that's where you got to take advantage. And I think Kyle will use George Kittle to take advantage of him.
The two linebackers. Quincy Williams was an All-Pro, first-team All-Pro last year. C.J. Mosley, good Lord. But whenever we're in heavy personnel, that's going to be Jermaine Sherwood out there. Or Jamien Sherwood. He has a 50 coverage grade, 56 coverage grade. Like, that's not his strong suit. So can you manipulate in the motions with 12 personnel, 21 personnel, shifting Kittle over to get the matchup you want versus the safety or that third linebacker? You do that. Ooh, that's where I do see it. Now I agree with you. The safeties are a problem. Can Kyle Shanahan scheme up on the board? Oh, you gave him 2 weeks? Okay. 2 weeks to scheme up on the board how to get Kittle versus the safeties, how to get Christian McCaffrey matched up with the safety, how to get those things set up. That's the thing. And for Robert Saleh and the Jets defense, Jeff Ulbrich, man, how do we keep our linebackers matched up with Kittle at all times? Like that or our nickel corners. Like that's just going to be, it's going to be an interesting one. Now, here, I'll jump to the other side. One of the Jets' advantages. If Yetur can't go, which he's not practicing today, is the official first practice report coming out. Should probably come out here in about 3 hours or so. Just who's playing and who's not and whatever else. As of now, Yetur still hasn't practiced. If that's the case, Robert Beal Jr. is going to be getting a lot of snaps this game. You're talking 20-plus snaps. That is concerning to me, majorly. Now, maybe Sam Aquanu gets called up. Maybe you call up Alex Barrett. Who? Garvin? Don't know. But that defensive end depth is a major concern. And one of the strengths of the team for the Jets is their offensive tackles. Yeah, they're old. Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, but it's week 1. They ain't had time for the injuries and all the wear and tear and all those things. The edge perimeter run game has been an issue for the 49ers since Talanoa Hufanga was hurt. I don't expect Talanoa to play this week. I really, really don't. I know some people are saying it's optimistic. We'll see what happens with the practice report, but is the outside perimeter run game scares me a little bit whenever our starters, Leonard Floyd and Nick Bosa, are not out there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of found that weakness within the 49ers defense. Most like to crack down on that defensive end, kick him inside and then take advantage of an alley defender that doesn't always get home. I will say this about like George Odom, though. He's good at being an alley defender, and he's probably the likely starter because I don't know. I'm with you about Talanoa Hufanga. I don't know how likely it is that he's going to start this game. I think it's maybe week 2, week 3, probably the most likely for him. And the edge defenders, a lot of times they get blamed for some of those blocks, and they've got to get some help. Some linebackers and some defensive backs got to start yelling that the crack is coming so that way they know and they don't get put on the ground. But I think it is concerning, when you're talking about Robert Beal Jr., I thought it was an up and down preseason for him. I thought he did get better against the run as the preseason went on. The more snaps he got, the better he got, which is good. I still didn't see the explosiveness when it came to rushing the passer. But I like Sam Okawanu. I think Sam Okawanu will be elevated for this game. I think he will fill in with, I believe, Yetur Gross-Matos will be out. I'm hoping he could play, but it doesn't seem likely. So he does a pretty good job setting the edge. It ain't perfect, but those guys can come in and compete and give you some snaps to at least give Bosa and Floyd some time. So, yeah, I think that's a question mark. How is Nathaniel Hackett going to scheme it up to get Breece Hall on the edge? And can the 49ers edge defenders set a solid edge? And then when it's time, can that force defender come up and make the play? I believe the force defender will do a good job, but the alley defender is going to have to make the tackle. That's George Odom, that's Deommodore Lenoir, and that's Jair Brown. And I'm hoping they do a good job. So defensive ends, you're right. That it could be a concern, especially with Morgan Moses, and these good offensive tackles going against the 49ers backup defensive ends.
There we go. There we go. Tom, look at this. Tom Ruck, shout out to this guy. Says, as a Jets fan, this is some of the best analysis I have heard. Great job, guys. Man, every single team has quality fans. Usually we don't hear from those. So I want to say thank you, Tom. Two former football coaches just talking. We watch film. That's kind of what we do and whatever. So I appreciate the kind words. And I know a handful of Jets fans that are just solid guys. Usually we only hear from the knuckleheads. But, man, really appreciate you, Tom, stepping in. And look at this. Right here, David says, Jets just announced Mike Williams being on a snap count. He didn't play at all, really, throughout training camp in the preseason, so I'm not shocked by that. His entire career has been marred by injuries. And that was kind of the Jets' entire game plan this offseason was, let's go after ceiling plays, try to get one big run, maybe two, and take all these injury-prone players like Tyron Smith, like Mike Williams. Elijah Vera Tucker's still there. Aaron Rodgers, you look at him and what he's been through, 41 years old, coming off Achilles. Like, the Jets kind of pushed their chips in with a lot of these gamble-type players, and Hassan Reddick, traded a third-round pick for that guy. He ain't even going to show up. It's an interesting philosophy. There's no doubt about it. But whenever I saw them as week one, it's like, man, you're getting the Jets at their best, which is what I want. You always want, you don't want to play the wounded dove or whatever, you want to go after, I want the big dog at his best. That's just me. So, Ant, let me ask you this. What do you think is the idea behind the 49ers coverage scheme against Garrett Wilson, knowing that the counterpart, because they don't have wide receiver depth. I know they drafted Michael Corley, and I know they got Alan Lazard, another Iowa State guy, but there's not a lot there outside of Garrett Wilson. So do you kind of fold your coverage over and pay extra attention? Do you have Charvarius Ward follow Garrett Wilson? What's your kind of philosophy on that?
I think you come out and you play the defense as you normally would play the defense, at least initially. I think you're going to give different looks, and I think that's one of the things that Brandon Staley is going to bring to the table is he's going to kind of try to confuse Aaron Rodgers a little bit. And it's not going to be easy. Aaron Rodgers has seen almost everything. But pre- and post-snap reads, I think, are something you're trying to muddy up a little bit for Aaron Rodgers. And I think it does help with the fact that you can move coverage over to Garrett Wilson at times. So maybe it's a third and long situation. You take away Garrett Wilson and you make somebody else beat you. I think those things can definitely happen. But for the most part, I think we're going to see the 49ers play defense as normal. You're going to see Isaac Yedem covering Garrett Wilson, and you're going to see Charvarius Ward and Diamondre Lenore, and they're just going to try to play a team-style defense. So I think they will mix in some coverages that try to take some bracket coverages and things, or maybe a safety over the top to take away what you got going there. But to me, I think the 49ers come in and play their defense, and I think it's what Nick Sorensen wants to do, what he needs to do, because that's what always worked the best for DeMeco Ryans within the system. And I think that's his overall thought process. Let's go back to what worked with DeMeco, because that was the best defense we had in San Francisco.
There we go. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the Jets coverage and kind of their tendencies, because I think it's similar to us, but I want to go over the percentages there and kind of how Ant wants to attack that. But first, real quick word from our sponsor. We are back, baby. Year 6 with MyBookie. I love these guys. There's being a fan and enjoying your team playing, but whenever you're invested in it and you've got money on the line, it's so much more enjoyable. The highs are higher, sometimes the lows are lower, but it's totally worth it. Trust me. And once you start, it's kind of hard to stop, but just always manage your own bets. Make sure you don't go too far with anything and consider this entertainment. But we're going to guide your hand. We help you here at the 49ers Rush. We post all of our bets and what we do every single week with the Niners over on our Patreon and the 49ersrush.com. We got you. And my favorite thing about MyBookie, there's several. Easy to get money in and out. Don't have to download an app. Whatever it is you want to bet, this player, that many carries, under carries, spread, parlays, all that stuff, it's easy. All you got to do is go to mybookie.ag, use promo code 49ERS, or just use this QR code next to me if you're watching. Use promo code 49ers, and guess what? You get a $1,000 bonus all the way up to that on your first deposit. It's incredible. All you got to do is use 4.9 ERS. It helps the show, and trust me, you're going to have a good time. And with college football season, you can bet on that if you want to. Last year, they had some of the best odds for Michigan to win the national championship. 10 times return if you bet Michigan to win the national championship before the season started. They've got all that stuff set up there again for college football, NFL, you name it. Never miss out on the action again. Bet anything, anywhere, anytime, only with MyBookie. Now, with the games tonight, I've already posted season-long bets over on the 49ersrush.com and our Patreon channel. You can check that out in the description. But my Week 1 teaser, this is a 3-team teaser bet, so you get extra points added on to the thing. I'm taking the Ravens plus 13 versus the Chiefs. I want the points early. Chiefs always play people close early. Packers plus 12.5 versus the Eagles. And then I'm taking the 49ers plus 5.5 versus the Eagles. Bet 10 to win back 8.5. That's what my Week 1 teaser is. I'm pretty excited about that one. So if you want to jump in on that. Now, let's go to this, Ant. Let's transition. And here's we got an awesome question on here, and I love it whenever we get into scheme. I kind of, what's up, my man JP? He says, who's covered the seams for the Jets in their cover 3? Listen to the Jets' coverages last year. I don't think much is going to change here. Their number 1 coverage was cover 4 or quarters, much like us. Their number 2 thing was cover 1. They'll do a single high, kind of press, whatever, on the outside, usually press. You got sauce, you got to do it. And then their next highest coverage is a cover 3, which JP talks about, where you have 3 deep and all that stuff. I think it's going to be, Tony Adams, who undrafted free agent out of Illinois, damn good player from 2022 draft. They had a lot of guys on the Illinois secondary. That's going to be kind of that single high guy that's going to jump that. I think we know what we're going to get from them coverage-wise because they do what they do even more than the Niners do. They don't change at all. So the offense is practiced against this. How would you attack this coverage scheme?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing would be Brock Purdy's got to recognize what he's going to look at and what he's seeing. But I mean, there's always these built-in cover 3 beaters. I mean, it's that simple. If you have 2 receivers on one side, you get the guy up the seam, you have the other guy, go ahead and sit down with the little hook and get the ball there. There's a lot of things you put guys in stretches depending on the coverage. And one of the problems is you get those guys in the cover 3 that have to fly out to the flats. And when they fly out to the flats, they leave that opening there that you can take advantage of. So I think that there's a lot of things you can go with. I think a lot of the motion that the 49ers run is going to help give away what the coverage is. And so if you're going to see that cover 1 and you're going to start seeing guys moving with coverage, Kyle Shanahan, that's when he starts manipulating and getting those matchups he likes. As you're bumping or you're changing over, it just makes things more difficult. So I mean, it's pretty easy when you know what the coverage is. That's going to be the part, the pre-snap, figuring out what the coverage is from motion to formation shift, and then Brock Purdy using his really innate ability to discover what it is and then find the necessary receiver. So it's not that difficult. The concepts are pretty easy when you're talking about what coverage compared to what route schemes you're going to run. And Kyle Shanahan does a pretty good job of revealing them for Brock.
Yeah, I like this. Tom, he says Chuck Clark. Yeah, he's kind of the more of the box safety, but they do rotate, and with the jet motions and all that stuff. Saleh, who's not calling defense, but it's his principles, he has always rotated those safeties to try to offset the numbers and the run gaps whenever you're flipping the numbers with that jet motion across. My number 1 thing is, look, once you recognize it's press coverage, look away from Debo. That's not that, I'm trying to take shots at Debo or whatever else, but it's just like, let's find a way to kind of figure out what the coverage is. Brock's at his best versus that. He was the most efficient EPA quarterback versus zone coverage, which is what the Jets do. It's just they do this hybrid press man cover 1 situation. That's where you need to kind of like, okay, where's my man beater route? And Corey says, John, how many catches will BA get? Brandon Ayuk averaged 6.5 targets per game. I will set the over-under. I'm going to go at 3.5. I'm going to go a little bit lower this one, and I want to transition this into this conversation. And do you see Ayuk or Trent Williams on any type of pitch count in week 1?
I think that Brandon Ayuk, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to have a receiver come in and take some of those snaps and make sure that you keep him healthy, because soft tissue injuries are something I would be concerned with a player that hasn't been out there competing and running full speed. Because there's a difference between practicing full speed and then playing in a game full speed where adrenaline goes up and everybody's just going a little bit harder than you thought you possibly could. So I do think there'll be some times he's out. I don't think it's going to be hugely significant. I think it's just going to be breaks from here to there to get him some looks. With Trent Williams, I don't know. Maybe there's a series or two, but for the most part, I would expect Trent Williams to be out there. This is kind of what he does. And so I think with Trent, less likely. With Brandon Ayuk, I don't think it'll be a lot, but maybe 10 snaps or so that he would have taken, that they put somebody else out there.
Yep. I like it. And yeah, David kind of jumping on that. I think Cowan will get a few targets. Jets won't be expecting that. The rotation I could expect to be heavy. At least I want it to be. Now, in the past, what I hate, this is a pet peeve of mine, I'll be at the game and you'll get a play or whatever, and you'll see Debo and Ayuk, and sometimes even George Kittle, all go to the sideline together on like a 2nd down and 6. And it's like, man, Kyle, we all know you're running it, and then they'll run it, and it works. That's what's so funny. And then they'll all three come back on. And so, like, I hope there's a little bit more of a rotation where it's like it's okay to have Debo out there, but not Ayuk or whatever else. So I hope there is a little bit of rotation in there, that Chris Conley gets some snaps, Jacob Cowan gets some snacks. You get those guys in there, and I'm fine with the targets. I hope they do. Cowan, that dude is about as cool as they get for a rookie. That he has. It's like whatever the stadium pulse is like all the way and everything's shaking and whatever else, my NCAA players, that dude it doesn't affect him. He just shows up. That's why he's going to be the punt returner, which does scare me. But I have confidence in the young lad. So let's take a step back. Let's get to one more point, each one of us. What's another 49ers advantage? Then I'll come back with the Jets one.
It's Kyle Shanahan versus Jeff Ulbrich. I think that Kyle Shanahan knows what he's going to see from this defense, and he knows, what weaknesses and strengths they had. And let's be honest, he's been on this for a long time. Kyle Shanahan will look at week 1 for a long time and get it exactly where he wants and dialed. And we've seen the 49ers go absolutely off on Pittsburgh last year. When you have time to game plan, you have time to work things out, you're going to be able to take advantage. And now when you have an advantage to where you understand the defensive concept that you're going against with the amount of knowledge that Kyle Shanahan has for it, that's when it's going to be a little bit more difficult, I think, for the Jets. So he knows the advantages, not just with the coaching staff, but the players as well. He knows what Javon Kinlaw's strong with and what he's weak with. Solomon Thomas, same thing. So I think that Kyle Shanahan's going to scheme this thing up. He's got the proper quarterback. He's got the necessary weapons. I think it's going to be tough for the Jets, even though the Jets are really good. I think the Jets are going to play good defense. I think Kyle Shanahan's just got a little bit more of an advantage over Ulbrich and the defensive staff.
I like it. Now, let's flip that a little bit. The Jets don't do a lot of heavy personnel. Last year, they were in 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 17% of the time. 21%, 2 backs, 1 tight end, 7% of the time, 13, 5%, 22, 2%. Add up all those percents, it's like right at 29%. Okay. So I'm sorry. Yeah. My numbers are off a little bit. 31%. There we go. When they're in big personnel, we go to our 4-3 package, which used to be base, but now it's whatever. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. He is a great coverage linebacker. He is a great special teamer. He is about as poor versus the run as I have graded a linebacker for a long time. He just can't react well to it. The former safety, his feet are stuck like glued to the turf. They just don't move. That is a concern. So whenever we're in our Bravo group, meaning our second defensive lines out there, which I've already expressed concerns about on the defensive end side, stack that in a heavy personnel group with DFF behind him. If I was Robert Saleh, and I know you got Aaron Rodgers out there and you want to go sling it and throw the ball 55 times, whatever else, I hope they do that. I really, really do. That plays into the strength of the 49ers. But if I was self-scouting the 49ers, I would be sitting here saying, hey, Nick Sorensen, this is what you got to watch out for. When 45's out there, with your Bravo group, you are at the biggest disadvantage at any point. You are vulnerable to the run. You are vulnerable to power, which they don't really do pin pull. They should add that. Hackett, not a good OC. That gives me a little bit more confidence. But even outside zone to that side, those are a little bit of my concerns. Tell me I'm a little bit wrong on DFF, maybe?
I can't do that because I sit too many times breaking down the film, just frustrated with DFF. He just is so slow to recognize what he's looking at. He doesn't pull the trigger. He doesn't go downhill. When he's on the backside, he's not really moving and getting there for the cutback lane. To me, this is one of those things I'm real concerned about. And we've seen kind of that move from the Detroit Lions last year in the NFC Championship game to take advantage of our third linebacker. And then eventually, when there was an injury, they took the Super Bowl, they took advantage of Oren Burks. This is a problem for the 49ers. And Robert Saleh, he knows Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles' strengths and weaknesses. He coached him. So he has a really good idea of what he can do and can't do. And Jeff Ulbrich was one heck of a linebacker. So they know what good linebacker play is, and they know when they see 45, he's not playing good when it comes to stopping the run. I think if I was the Jets, that would be my number one game plan. I would go to heavy sets, get Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles on the field, and take advantage of him in the run game. Run right at him with Breece Hall. I think that's their best advantage against the 49ers. And that's frustrating to say because I do think there's linebackers, D. Winters dealing with the ankle, who would have been a lot better. I think Curtis Robinson outplayed DFF, yet he's not going to start over DFF, which is frustrating. So, yeah, that's a real weakness. You pinpointed it perfectly. If I'm the Jets, I'm looking at 45, and I'm like, that's not Boobie Miles, but we're running right at him.
I like that. Now, if you guys are going to any road games this year, I want you to come party with us. 49ersrushroadtrip.com. We're going to be at the Vikings game week 2, Seattle, that Thursday night game week 6, Tampa Bay week 10. That's going to be our party of the year. We're going to be partying with Bills Mafia week 13 all the way up in Buffalo. That's a long trip. And then week 18, the last regular season week, we'll be down in Arizona. But our details are completely finalized for this Vikings trip, which I'm so pumped about. We're going to be partying Crave Rooftop Party downtown 825 Hennepin from 2 to 6. And here's the cool thing. We rented out this venue. We're also setting up a double party with Tom's Watch Bar after that. So if you get tickets with us, you get entry into both those spots. We're just going to be partying with the Niners all day. Going to be an absolute blast. And then, of course, the day of, we have a great tailgate spot as close to the stadium as you could get. We don't have a lot of spots. We do have to limit this tailgate. So if you are one of those people that's like, oh, I want to go do this or whatever else, you got to get your tickets because it's going to sell out. 49ersrushroadtrip.com. We will not have be able to buy the day of. We're capping it at a certain number so we can guarantee unlimited drinks, unlimited food, all that stuff. Going to be a blast. And again, any kids get in free with a ticketed adult. Obviously, no alcohol for the kiddos, but it's going to be a good time. So 49ersrushroadtrip.com all year. If you're going to any away games, come party with us. That's what's up. And right here, dancing. JP Mason returning kickoffs. Do you think the kickoffs will have as much action as preseason? And if so, can he break off a big one? First off, let me ask you this, Ant. Is Isaac Guerrero already kind of done for week 1? Do you think he's any chance of playing? Because I think they want it to be Isaac.
I think they do want it to be Isaac. I think that they also have a situation where they've got to decide if he's going to be active. So they might go a different route just because can you have a guy active as a fourth running back just so he can return kicks? You might go with a different player because we talked about elevations a little bit from your practice squad. Sam Okawanu is going to be one more than likely because of Yetur Gross-Matos. And then if Talanoa Hufanga doesn't play, it's probably going to be Tracy Walker. And so you've got those two guys up. You probably have an inactive fourth running back that's either Isaac Guerrero or Patrick Taylor. I think Patrick Taylor does other things for your special teams. And so maybe he would be more likely to play than Guerrero. But I would love to see Guerrero back there. I mean, that dynamic 93-yard return was absolutely fantastic. And I would love to see him continue to do that because I think it took the pressure off the 49ers when it came to kick return. They're feeling the pressure to have Debo back there and make something happen. Guerrero gives you that whole shot ability where you don't really have to worry about putting Debo back there.
Yeah, I like that. So let's get to the second part then. JP Mason returning kickoffs. What are just your overall thoughts on that? And kind of, man, does that give the 49ers an advantage?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I've been bringing this up for a while. Jordan Mason and before Elijah Mitchell was hurt again. I wanted those two kind of guys back there, running back types. It makes the most sense. We've heard Snyder, Coach Snyder talk about, we wanted to say Chris Firster, he's always on the brain, but Coach Snyder talked about the fact it could look a lot like an outside zone. And so getting a running back that knows the feel of what an outside zone looks like and being able to pick his gap and then go through it, I think makes a lot of sense, a running back type. But they got to be able to field the ball because the dynamic kickoffs are about to take an interesting twist with the amount of knuckleballs and kind of these low liners that you're going to get as they try to somewhat mess up the timing for the kickoff return team. So I do love the fact that Jordan Mason could be back there. I think that would be a lot of fun because once this guy gets going downhill, who wants to get in his way as he's running full speed? I don't think there's going to be a lot of willing tacklers.
Yeah, hey, he's such a stud, man. But if I was coaching the special teams, I would say, hey, touchback, touchback, touchback. If you have to field it, get what you can. I just don't want special teams to be a negative. It's always kind of the thorn in our side. We're just we're the worst coached special teams group in the NFL. I firmly believe that, and it bothers me. Hopefully we get a little bit of a surprise. I just don't want it to ruin us. I hate being in the deficit because our special teams are just so poorly prepared over and over and over again. David says, when do injury reports come out? So today, Thursday, is the first official day that the Niners and Jets have to report. Now, the body clock is always important. So with the game kickoff at 5:20, a lot of times teams will wait and have a later practice, usually around 4, because that's when you start your warm-up and all that stuff. So I fully expect that to come out either right before or right after practice. So probably 2 o'clock is the earliest I think we'll see them today, Pacific time. Probably closer to 5 is probably where we'll get some of those reports. So-and-so's out here, so-and-so's not. The official report, though, and that's the thing. You have to do official practice reports. All of it. Jim Harbaugh already got in trouble because he didn't put did you see this?
Yes.
He didn't put the quarterback, Herbert, on the injury report, and the NFL called him and like, dude, you have to put him on the injury report. He's been injured. He's like, but he practiced. I mean, it's just the most Harbaugh thing ever. But, like, you have to submit that officially to the NFL press, and then they have to put that out there. That's just part of the NFL bylaws to create, so teams can prepare or not prepare and whatever else. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, those are the official injury report days where you'll get limited, out, full, whatever else, and then we'll go from there. And because of that, I don't put out my week 1 bets for the 49ers till probably Saturday. So for those of you that are part of that, I'll post all of those Saturday on the 49ersrush.com and our Patreon channel, but our season-long bets are already up on there. You can go check that. Just scroll down a little bit. You'll see them. But as far as week 1 49ers bets, we're waiting till Saturday on those. Is there anybody that you're just like really watching and or concerned about for the 49ers on that injury report?
I think the main one I'm watching is Yetur Gross-Matos. Even though I don't believe he's going to play, I really hope he could, because I think his versatility when they get to the obvious pass downs to move inside is something I was really looking forward to kind of amplify how good this pass rush could be. And I think having him on the field with Floyd and with Bosa was going to be an advantage for the 49ers. So if he's not there, that's when you start bringing up Sam, Okawanu and others as potential replacements, and that gets a little bit concerning. So I think that's the one I'm watching, even though I don't think he's going to actually play. I think they're going to kind of let this thing play out a little bit. Good news is at least Leonard Floyd was healthier from the MCL sprain.
There we go. I like it. I love it. All right. This would be one of our last ones. I'll give you some time. I'll go first. Who are the 2024 49ers captains? We don't know yet. Kyle Shanahan just does everybody vote. And then sometimes he'll choose to pick the top 4, top 5, top 6. Could go as much as 7 or 8. It's really whatever Shanahan feels. So let's see here. I'll go through first. My locks: Brock Purdy. I'm going George Kittle. I'm going Fred Warner. Those 3 are like my guaranteed locks. If I had it my way, CMC would be 4. I'm not putting on Brock Purdy. I'm sorry. I'm not putting on Brandon Ayuk. I'm not putting on Trent Williams either. Just because the holdout, they haven't been there. Obviously, you can do that. I'll go Debo 5. I'm going to go Charvarius Ward would be my number 6. Those would be my 6 votes. Any changes or names you would take off and or, put out there?
I think that Nick Bosa might be a captain this year. I know that
Oh,
last
there
year
we
he
go.
wasn't because he had the holdout, but I could see Nick
He was
Bosa doing
there.
it. Yeah.
He was there every day.
Yeah, and I think that also Brock Purdy, is going to be a captain of this football team. I think that they're putting him kind of in that place where they really do look up to him and who he is, and so I think he could. So that might prevent a guy from like Charvarius Ward from being a captain, even though he's been really good and he's a leader in that secondary. But the other guys that are available are definitely Charvarius Ward. I think he could be one that's kind of on the outside looking in. We'll see. I mean, the 49ers, when it comes to captains, whatever reason, it's pretty contentious to see who actually gets on there. They got a lot of good players. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. And Trent, you never know. I mean, Trent Williams might still make it on there. I would think because Bosa was left off last year, it would make it the most sense if he's left off this year. But who else is going into year 15 as the best left tackle in all of football? Never count him out for the team still realizing, how much of a leader he is for this team.
Yeah, that's it. Corey says, Kyle Juszczyk took a pay cut. Yeah, we'll see what the people vote. And that's the thing. Like I did that roster countdown 1 through 91, which was always way too much work. But like you get down to the top 10 and it's like, man, Debo's this high. Like you're leaving guys out of your top 5 that are all pros. And it's like, golly, Niners are stacked, man. This roster is just off of the charts. You look at the Jets team and you're like, man, they got like 4 to 5 really good players. And then you're like, okay, so that gives them the advantage here. No, actually, we have better players at that position. Okay, well, actually, we got better play. Man, like the Niners are stacked, but that doesn't decide the game. We'll see in your Madden simulation, but you got to go out there and play. And that's kind of what it is. So, man, this has been an absolute blast. I love Thursdays, man. This show kind of flies off the shelf a little bit there, buddy. I don't know. We might have to get tested for performance-enhancing drugs, but that's okay. And you are the man. Make sure you turn in to the 49ers Cutback, Madden Simulation Friday, game preview Saturday, and post-game. Go check them out after the 49ers game. I always listen to it when I'm driving home. That's just the way it goes. But that's going to do it for us today. You guys are the absolute best. It is football season, baby. We got a game tonight. Go Ravens. And for everybody else, that's going to do it for us here. Until next time, stay strong, faithful.